Now, the annual summit of the World Economic Forum is presently underway in Davos in Switzerland. This, remember, is the biggest congregation of global and financial leaders in a post-pandemic world and is going on in the usual snow-laden setting of Davos in the Swiss Alps. The forum has called on leaders from across the globe to address the immediate economic, energy and food crisis. But the worsening climate crisis has, of course, taken the centre stage. We'll be seeing leaders laying the groundwork for a more sustainable and also, hopefully, a more resilient world. And amongst the global leaders who are headed to Europe's highest mountains to attend the forum include the likes of Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz, the presidents of Spain, South Korea and Poland. Some 1,500 corporate leaders have also gathered for the annual meeting in the Swiss Alp resort. And amongst those corporate leaders are major oil companies such as BP, Chevron, Saudi's Aramco. And when these leaders meet, several issues that have to do with climate change will, of course, come up for discussion. Moreover, the oil and gas industry has stated that it must be part of the energy transition, as according to them, fossil fuels will continue to play a significant role in the global energy mix as nations move to low-carbon economies. While the leaders attend the meeting, climate activists have blocked a private jet airport used by attendees who arrive at the World Economic Forum, and they're calling for the wealthy to be held accountable for climate and ecological damage. And as part of their Make Them Pay campaign, nearly about 15 members of the Debt for Climate movement suspended themselves from a makeshift wooden pole structure and used barrels to block the entrance to the arrivals hall of the private St. Gallen Alterrhein Airport. They also stuck posters on the exterior of the terminal building which read as Davos Stop Funding Climate Chaos and Davos Billionaires Party While the World Burns. Moreover, a separate protest was also held at the Davos Square. More than 100 climate activists protested against the role of the big oil firms, claiming that these energy giants were in fact monopolizing the debate on climate change. The protesters could, of course, be seen chanting, "Change your diet for the climate. Eat the rich."
It's important to be here to show what are the problems of the World Economic Forum. We see that the WEF is inviting a lot of companies that are doing harm, that are not accepting human rights, that are violating the climate in different ways, and we are protesting that.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what's actually playing out at Davos, we're being joined by our business editor, Sumit Chaturvedi, who's joining us live from Davos on this broadcast. So this, of course, is an important meeting of the political and the corporate world leaders. They're all there at the World Economic Forum to discuss a whole host of different issues, but climate change is going to dominate the agenda, and this is what the climate environmentalists have also been talking about, that people have gathered there, but tell us what is likely to happen.
Till a few days ago, there was some less slope on snow on the slopes of Davos. Well, that led to speculations that this time there may be no snow at all or very less snow. Well, that is giving to clearly indications that the climate change is real. It is now happening in Davos. It's much closer to reality than thought. And protests have become now an annual feature as the rich and famous, the financial world wizards and bigwigs, they gather here. Protesters also come from all walks of life, from Europe, from across the world. Their agenda and what they want to really put before the world is that they want to protest against the companies, the institutions, which they are calling the problem creators and not the problem solvers. In this Swiss resort town of Davos, well, for 5 days, many people, they gather, they come. But protesters also come to show the world that they are the problems creators, not the solvers.
All right, so now do continue to stay on with us. Meanwhile, I'm told that we're also being joined by Mr. Erik Solheim, who's joining us from Oslo in Norway. Now, Erik is the former UN Environment Executive Director and Under Secretary General of the United Nations. Now, Mr. Solheim, thank you very much indeed for taking time out and speaking to us here on WION. Now, this is a summit that a lot of people will be, of course, taking a look at, the World Economic Forum, which is presently underway in Davos. Now, tell us, there's a lot of criticism that's also been leveled against the political and the corporate leaders who are gathering in Davos. It's being said that they've all gone there in their private jets, which causes a lot of pollution, and the upshot of the World Economic Forum is that very little will come out of it, because the World Economic Forum is nothing more than a talking shop. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't. I mean, obviously there are many leaders from both business and governments in Davos, which are not the good guys, people we don't like and environmentalists are opposed to. But you need to bring everyone into the conversation. It can not only be a conversation of the great, good people of the world. Everyone must be part of it. And that's what's happening in Davos. Obviously, in the future, governments must regulate markets, but only business can drive the change we need to scale. Only business can innovate and make all the technologies we need. And those are the companies who are in Davos. I personally believe that the change will not basically come from the oil companies. It will come from the technology companies, the Infosys or Huawei or Googles of this world, or it will come from all this enormous amount of renewable companies, which are also in Davos.
All right, very interesting there. Do continue to stay on with us, Mr. Solim, because we want you to weigh in on one other significant aspect. Meanwhile, Sumit, if I can bring you in on this, what is interesting is that the oil and gas companies who are also taking part at the World Economic Forum, they've said that it is important that they also be kept in alignment with the way the energy requirements of the future will, of course, be in many ways asking the political leaders to keep in account that oil and gas will continue to remain an important part of our economy for many years to come before the transition to electricity is made. How is this likely to be done, considering the fact that a lot of these nations have important targets that have to be met in the course of the next few decades?
Well, to begin with, I would like to focus on one thing or bring out one fact here. In Davos, we have seen many electric cars, Tesla and other electric cars are there. Clearly, dependence on oil is increasing, but here it's decreasing. But other parts of the world, it's quite increasing. So that's what has led to protests saying that these companies, BP, Chevron, are the ones that are creating a lot of problem, pollution and other problems. So why are they being allowed to share the same room with ministers, policymakers, decision makers, in which they can push their agenda? They can push their agenda. Why are they being allowed to clearly share the stage with all the policymakers? That's what protesters are clearly miffed at, and they're protesting against here a short distance from here. They are gathered, especially they are protesting against these big oil firms. Yes, you rightly pointed out, this time the big focus is on oil companies. Crude prices have gone up. Most of the world is under the grip of inflation. Poorer countries are becoming poorer, and that's what is leading to problems when it comes to taking people out of poverty. So yes, that's a problem, and protests are happening here every year. This time they're focused mainly on petroleum company and big oil giants that have really reaped very high profits over the last 1 year.
All right, very interesting. So we do continue to stay on with this. And Mr. Solim, if I can bring you in on this, because this has now become a bit of a very controversial issue where the oil and gas companies are saying that they have to be a part of the discussion in terms, when the world makes its transition from hydrocarbons to electric energy. It is important that these companies that do business with oil and gas, that they are also a part of the administrative framework. Do you agree that these companies are serious in ensuring that governments can actually go ahead and achieve the climate targets that they've set for themselves?
These companies basically want to have the cake and eat it at the same time. They want to continue their dirty business while also at the same time moving into the future business. They must be pushed up to the wall. They must be under constant criticism from media, from social movements, from NGOs. Otherwise, they will not change. But they are also needed in the change. But let's look to the big picture of Davos. We are in a world of enormous uncertainty. Everyone is uncertain on climate change. There's uncertainty of the future of the global economy. There's a lot of uncertainty coming from the war in Ukraine. And all these issues will come together in Davos. And on the positive side, we see a number of positives. China and India seems to be now on the verge of rapid economic growth this year. That will be green growth.
Right.
We see a huge number of renewable companies coming to Davos and present their plans for the future. And we will see an enormous surge in renewable energy. because of the war in Ukraine. And finally, India will provide the leadership for G20 this year. And that will be a leadership will try to heal the world and bring the world together. And then we need both governments and NGOs and companies.
All right, my last quick question to you, Mr. Solheim, is, the fact that climate change is such an important issue at the World Economic Forum. This is a gathering that is taking place in the Swiss Alp resort town of Davos. If these world leaders and the business leaders were serious in addressing issues of climate change, should they not be gathering in a place which is very badly affected by climate change?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we have seen in the Swiss Alps this year, where many of the ski resorts have had no snow. That's one of the most visible effects of climate change everywhere in the world. So it's very good that people are made aware of that. But I don't think the issue in Davos is not that people are not aware, because the World Economic Forum itself has made climate and environment the key topic. They presented a risk report for 2023. Nearly all the future risks they see are related to destruction of nature and climate. So people are fully aware. But we need to design the policies, and we need really the focus, the engine of business to change the world. And that's what we can hopefully see some elements of in Davos.
All right, very interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Erik Solheim, for joining us and getting us all those insights. And thanks also to my colleague Sumit Chaturvedi for joining us from Davos there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.